Hey guys, it's Luke here from Surprise Lethal. This game will be commentated. With me today is Lee and James. Lee actually contributed the deck that Gemma is using today, and James is obviously playing. So go ahead and say hey guys.
Yo,
It's good to be here.
This is, I think both you guys is like first time like commentating anything like this, or
yeah.
Yeah, it's first
first
time
time.
on this.
yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting anyway. Lee knows a lot about this deck obviously because he built it, and
Yep.
I mean, James doesn't know anything about his deck, so
Nope.
it'll be pretty interesting.
It's a pretty standard ViVid strike build, but using the red splash, which I don't think many people inside of Europe use. I think they usually go for the blue splash. The red splash is there as a way to give you access to the graveyard. So use the 1/0 Slayer, discard a climax to salvage, which is the way to get more access to any cards you need.
Yeah. James is using the. Is it? Are you using?
It's Emilia into Betty. Yeah.
Yeah, Emilia into Betty. Yeah. So it's like a pretty standard, modernized white post set to red blue, from what I'm aware anyway.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. I'm not sure about like what the matchup's like. Like, what would you say the matchup is like for this?
I would say I wouldn't say it's particularly favoured for either one deck. I think both decks can execute their game plans relatively standard. The only thing, obviously, is what ViVid Strike has to watch out for against most matchups these days. People being ready with anti-change for level 2 when Fuka hits the field. But both players are going to get the level 1 combos off, no problem. Level 0 is going to go relatively uncontested.
Yeah. Of course, like there's a lot of ways to play against ViVid Strike. Being that it's level 1 combo, it tends to be the on reverse Shimakaze.
Yeah.
Fuka can be anti-changed quite easily, especially by like bottom deck slayers or stuff like that. So there's a lot you can do to play against ViVid Strike, but if you fail to do so, it can get quite bad, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not ready, then Fuga's going to get out of control with a ridiculous amount of markers. I think the way you want to tend to play ViVid Strike these days is you want multiple level 3 threats and then force them to answer more than one, because if you only play one, it's definitely going to get answered straight away.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, what sort of game plan does James want to be going for here, would you say? Would you say you want to push damage early against ViVid Strike, or hold off a bit?
I think it depends. Well, if you push too early, you don't want to really flood the field because of on reverse climax combo. I think you're safe to play a relatively slow level 0. But I think, like I said, from Gemma's side, she can just hold off and then use the combo when there is a field to actually reverse. I don't know what, James, your plan was for coming into level 1 here.
Well, my plan should have been to not try field.
Yeah.
But well,
didn't go quite
you'll
according
see.
to plan. Yeah. Like a really good way to play against like as well ViVid Strike, I think, is if you've got things that are like exactly what James just did right there with the rem that goes to stock is a very good thing to field against ViVid Strike.
Yeah.
So
if you try fields that against a level 1, like, well, yeah, there's nothing she can do about that.
So interestingly here, Gemma actually forgot that rem goes to stock. She was planning to just kill it from the Ricky.
Yeah.
The reason she's played a climax is because she's got 2 or 3 in hand at this point, I think.
Yeah.
Just trying to get them out of her hand.
Yeah, and it also, I think, for ViVid Strike, it helps to whack ReZero up to level 1 first, because it sort of forces James to try field. Because when you hit level 1 first, you kind of want to go, like, you've hit level 1, you kind of want to pop off and do your combo. So it's really tempting for James here to just go, alright, fuck it, I'm going to field my combo if he's got it, and just pop off that way. But that plays into exactly what Gemma wants, because she wants a field to reverse. So I think playing the climax there is actually like a pretty decent play, honestly. Because like I said, to wax James up so that he's more tempted to try field.
Yeah. I think an interesting choice. Now you can see James thinking about it. There is that 1-1 Emilia promo. What was your thoughts behind whether to take that or not at this point?
Well, yeah, I was considering it. I think my thoughts mostly on stock, though, to be honest.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure on whether to play that extra stock or not. Thinking back on it, maybe I should have, but I mean, it's easy to say that now. But
I mean, the other risk there is that if you play the 1-1, this build of ViVid Strike does have 3 copies of the 1-1 to get marks itself. So
that's it as well. So yeah.
And I think there's already 1 copy in Gemma's waiting room already.
Yeah, so for James right now, he's in a sort of position where you really want to try field here, because if you don't, then you can lose out on damage and lose out on a lot of stock gain, especially if she then does her client's combo before you, because he already had an Emilia on field. There's nothing he can do about that. And he couldn't just swing with one thing that turn, because,
I think playing the 1-0 Rem here might have been a mistake, because obviously the Rem only gets power in your own turn, and there isn't really a threat on the board worth killing at this point.
Yeah.
I think it would have been better to field something more throwaway. Because obviously you've got the try field here. When it swings back to her turn, she's just going to combo with no problems because everything's relatively small.
So I'm personally, I'm not sure what options like ReZero has in the way of very weak things or anything like it can throw at level 1 or level 0. But I'd have been trying to probably field something that could trade with Gemma's cards, because if you can do anything that can trade, it's optimal, really.
So this is interesting here. So Gemma opted not to clock kick the Ricky to obviously have a field for the Fuka. She actually got taken up to 1-6 here. I think it could have been interesting from her side of the field. Instead of not clocking and brainstorming, it could have been interesting to clock herself up to level 2 and then actually just early play Fuka here. Get the ball rolling now, and then she could have searched a second level 3 Fuka off the 1-0s. So once James has hit level 2 and obviously aimed to deal with the first one, she's then got a second one ready to go, or even had 2 on the field at once. And based on the way we have anti-change in the UK at the moment, it might have been too much for James to deal with here, or it would have taken a lot of resources.
Yeah, I think based on what I know of ReZero, if she had have gone for that play, I would have put James in quite a tough spot, because there's no way his level 1 game is going to get big enough to get over that.
Yeah.
And there's no anti-change available unless she whacks him up to 2. And even then, I'm not sure. Were you running the bottom deck Slayer, James? Or did you just
I was running the Emilia one.
Oh, right, okay. So
yes, I would have been able to deal with it if I'd got to level 2, that is.
Yeah, if you'd have been whacked up to level 2. But, like, if you hadn't been able to deal with it, I mean, first of all, it forces you to commit something like a bottom deck Slayer to the board to deal with it. But also, like, had you not been whacked up, it means that whatever is against it at the level 1 is going to be crashing, which leaves open a direct slot then for Gemma to just push even more damage through. And obviously the Fuka just stacks up and she can start snowballing from it, like, get a second Fuka out. Then she's got 2 Fukas, you can't deal with both of them, and it can just snowball from there. So I think what Lee suggests is actually like a pretty solid play she could have made.
Looking at the play she's made here, I think her thinking was she had 2 climaxes in her hand still, so she's played the 1-0 Slayer to get the second one out of her hand. But had she gone for my line of play, she's then got a she's already got the level 3 climax in hand, so she could have maybe saved that for next turn or ditched it. I think at this point with the line of play she's made, ditching this climax she's just triggered is correct. while I was watching this on the timer, at the time I thought it might have been interesting if she would have taken the 2-1 off the clock instead and tried to set up a double early play turn where you change into the level 3 heal and then had the combo Fuka out.
Yeah.
I also think it's interesting that she's chosen to search her own anti-change layer at this point, but it does kind of make sense because if James does refresh here and plays a Rem, there isn't much outside of the anti-change layer to deal with the early played Rem. Level 3 Fuka can get big enough with the back row tap, but it's not necessarily going to get it outside of counter range.
Yeah. The Brainstorm doesn't give any power out, does it?
The ViVid Strike one.
Yeah.
It does. For every climax you hit, you get to give it 1,000 power.
Okay, right. But during James's turn, I think her Ricky is 1-5.
Yes.
James's Ricky is also 1-5.
Yeah.
So, like, instead of try-fielding into the combo, you probably could have fielded the Ricky against the Ricky and just gone for the trade, so you don't leave a Ricky on field for an easy reverse. Obviously, it didn't matter in this situation because she only fielded 2 of the Shimakaze, but you did like just let her potentially field 3 of the Shimakaze if she'd have had it in hand ready to go.
Yeah.
So trading Ricky probably would have been a better play, but either way, James gets whacked up to like was that 1-6. So
yeah. So she
Gemma
managed
well
to equal it up.
Yeah, equal it up.
Unfortunately for James here, he's only got 1 Emilia for the combo, so his resources are going to be drained quite a bit here.
Yeah. But 1 is better than none, so
Yeah.
at least he's getting the chance to play his combo. He's just checking here as well, just to make sure he can mill how much he can mill, because obviously you're going to want that climax to go back into the deck. So.
Yeah.
I think at this point, are you already 8 climaxes out?
No, I'm 7, because I think I'll trigger a gate here on this next attack.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think going on 4 is trying to like bait out the last climax of the deck so they can mill it, but because the chances are good. If you're like 1 in 7 and you've got a top 4, got a pretty good chance of hitting that climax. But
well, I mean, you either want to leave it in the deck or get it in the waiting room for the refresh ready.
Yeah, exactly. I think I'd probably have gone for the play of what James did, where I just mill 4.
Yeah.
Because in that situation, situation, if you mill 4, if it does go into the bin, you're going to end the turn on like 1 card left in deck.
What was your thinking behind triggering the gate there and not putting it into the waiting room?
I mean, either way, I'm going to end up with 7 climaxes in deck.
Yeah.
I thought I might as well take one of them out of the waiting room. Actually, I suppose that Emilia's going back in as well, though, so... I mean, I'd rather get something I can use next turn, like as you saw, the anti-change, rather than anything.
I think that's the correct play, because with a loaded waiting room like that as well, triggering a gate is that's like the best point to trigger a gate, almost.
Yeah.
With regards to what you can salvage. So, I mean, like, either way, it's not like one of your climaxes isn't going to go back in regardless, so you'd rather get a plus to hand, especially since you only got a single Emilia off that turn. Triggering a gate is almost kind of a blessing, actually.
Yeah.
I suppose it also helps to keep Rem turned on for next turn. Because he's going to hit level 2, so if he's already got 1 climax in the waiting room at that point, it's going to be a lot harder to early play Rem if he needs to do that.
Yeah.
So from Gemma's side here, I thought it was interesting she chose to go for a 1-1 here and not an early play Fuka. I think at 2-1, it's a little too late to get the ball rolling on the 1-1.
Yeah. Yeah, I think having played against like Catherine quite a lot with that 1-1, getting that 1-1 out at level 0 is filthy, because
this build can't actually do that. You have to
I
play
mean,
to level 1.
I'm not surprised, but
But
because I don't see it that often, like the whole 0 trap into the 1-1. Because I don't think that the trap into the 1-1 itself is like fantastic.
yeah,
But it's really good against decks that can't punish it. Because like once that 1-1 starts getting stacked up, like there's nothing you can do. It just snowballs out of control.
I just think at this point of the game, it's a little too late to start to get the ball rolling on that. I think
Yeah,
she
of
might have been
course.
much better getting a level 3 Fuka into play and getting that Slayer out of James's hands as soon as possible. I think the marker underneath the level 1 was guaranteed to be clean.
I think also one of the things though that would stop me from early playing the Fuka is I don't know how many copies of the anti-change James runs, and I'm sure Gemma didn't know either. So
True.
he's never going to hold on to 2. Like you're never going to hold on to 2 anti-change counters because it's just if they then don't get used, it's just been a waste of holding them onto them.
I think in this situation, probably because James only got 1 Emilia off, although it does look like thanks to that gate and clocking, he's still got a good sized hand at this point.
Yeah, but
Yeah, still
I
have
think
like 7-8 hand, yeah.
The fact that you're never gonna like your opponent is almost never going to hold on to 2. So as a result, I think burning it too early, like baiting the counter out too early, gives them chance to get another into hand.
The thing I would say though with ViVid Strike is, at least when I play it, I prefer to get the ball rolling on a Fuka as soon as possible because obviously the earlier you get the ball rolling, the more burn ones you're gonna get. And if you can force the anti-change out of hand early, then it also depends on what you've got in hand because you're going to need multiple level 3s in hand to actually get the ball rolling through all the counters to them.
Yeah.
So interestingly, at this point, James goes for 2 early play rems. Did you have anything else in hand at this point? Do you know, James?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
We can see he's obviously got Betty Clark.
Yeah.
But he's going to want to hold on to that regardless, especially at this point in level 2. I can't quite make out what else is in his hand, so.
What was you thinking for going for the double into Brainstorm here? Because that's a big stock commitment in a deck that needs ideally 9 stock to triple Betty at level 3.
Not sure off the top of my head, to be honest.
I mean, sometimes it just feels right at the time.
Yeah.
Like
That's kind of
like
what
the
I'm
temptation to heal 2 at level 2.
thinking.
Because like you see the first rem condition come off, and you're like, okay, first rem condition is there, and you're like, okay, I can heal 1, and then you see yourself at 2-4, and you're like, if I heal 1 more, there's almost no chance that they can kill. So I think to be honest, like,
yeah, I mean, I think especially against like decks like ViVid Strike that can just burn one constantly, then I think healing was my thought really.
yeah, like you want to be ahead in terms of you want to push them to 3 before they push you to 3. I think because a finisher like ViVid Strikes really excels on them already being at level 3. Like, say if James was like 3-3 or something.
I'd agree with
Fuka's
playing
just
the
gonna
first one.
decimate.
I think the first one was fine, and the Brainstorm. It's just by playing the second one as well, it just drains a lot of resources for level 3.
Yeah.
Okay, so the game's been paused here because we can't actually use the Einhard on the front row to save the 1-1. So we're just gonna rewind that and put that. So while they do that, I think saving the 1-1 isn't correct here either. I think she wants to potentially save that for a level 3 Fuka.
Yeah.
But I think that might have been her thinking with saving the 1 from the front row, but that's obviously you can't do that because it has to save it from the back row. But I think But ideally, I think you want to save the Einard on the back row for a level 3, because the 1-1's only got 2 markers at this point, and it's not really a huge threat to anything on James's side of the field.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be able to reverse the Rems, so it's going to have to go for the reverse against the Slayer just to get the marker. Even then, like, by the time it's got rolling, James can still get an easy reverse with Betty on that 1-1. So,
Yep.
and leaving it alive is actually probably quite detrimental for Gemma, because if she's leaving that alive in the hopes that it's going to get more and more markers and get fatter and fatter, when it comes to James' level 3 turn, he can just very easily just go, okay, I'm going to play Betty, and you've given me a free reverse because it's still not strong enough.
That's true.
Whereas if that slot's not there, if you let that die, you can then play into James' level 3 a bit better and be like, okay, I can field things that are going to crash against... Because at this point, you don't really care about the Rems being fat, because they're going to get played over by Betty, most likely, anyway. So I don't think you worry about the Rems at all at this point. And in fact, the Rems being there does give you an easy wall that you can just crash against, so that you don't leave reverses for Betty. So, and the fact that James has left the Slayer on the front means that if you field a 0 against that, you can neg him that Slayer and bait James into slaying your level 0 as well.
So
But
Gemma's double brainstormed here and hit off both of them, so
Oh, okay, sorry.
she still looks pretty compressed, so I don't think it would have been too bad to leave an empty board here. And with James only having 5 stock at this point at most, there's only going to be one on play Betty Byrne. Gemma's only got 3 stock herself, so the compression game on both sides hasn't really come into effect in this, because with only 2 markers and 3 stock, there's still a lot of cards in play.
Yeah. Everything's just come about a bit too late for Gemma in terms of compression.
Yeah.
I think, like I say, like you said, it would have been better with the early Fuka, just to get the compression ball rolling a bit faster.
Yep.
As for James, I don't think James has had a particularly good game in general. Only getting one of his Emilia combo off really sucked for him.
Yeah.
So
That's
he
true.
hasn't been able to pop off quite as much as he'd hoped to. And the most he's done is the double rem field, and even then that's questionable because of the stock commitment.
So Gemma's opted to actually play the Fuga here, knowing that there's a counter in James's hand. The cancel here is quite fortunate for Gemma, because if that attack would have stuck and then she would have got a soul trigger on the Slayer attack, then it would have leveled James up to 3 and Rem would have actually stayed alive. So I think that's somewhat fortuitous there. The 1-1 actually did manage to get enough power to get over the Rem thanks to the brainstorms here. Here James is trying to decide if he actually wants to anti-change the Fuka or not. I think if he plays the counter, you really don't want to use the anti-change portion, because the 1-1's going to die and then you have no reverse targets at all for the Betty level 3, because just by playing the counter, the Rem is no bigger than the 1-1. So I think that's what you're thinking about here, James?
Yeah, I believe so.
And I think Gemma might have been baiting James here to try and use the anti-change to leave herself with the empty field, because she hasn't triggered any climaxes this turn, so I think the bottom of her deck's quite compressed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, even just here, I think it's fine to just play the counter to save the Rem, because James doesn't have the stock anyway to do more than one proper Betty. Betty is a net cost of 3 stock to get the initial burn off as well.
Yeah.
And with 5 stock, he can only get 1 Betty off. So, he can play 2 and get 2 reverse burns off, but he can only actually get 1 full Betty off, which is kind of, you want to be getting more than that off really as your end game. So keeping the Rem alive for an easy 2 soul swing, I think is actually fine. Because it means you can then keep a Betty in hand for a potential follow-up finishing turn. Which obviously you're going to have enough stock for that because 3 swings is 3 stock.
So James drew into a second gate this turn. So unfortunately, playing the 2 early play Rems didn't really pay off because I think by playing those 2 Rems, you'd like an extra turn through level 2 to build up more resources ready for level 3. So at this point, James isn't particularly ready for level 3. So I think at a minimum, when you're playing the Betty combo, you want at least 6 stock to get the double as a minimum.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And like if you go back and you look at it as well, even if he just right at this point, if he hadn't have brainstormed the time before and he hadn't used the counter as a result of that, he would have had 6 stock, so he could have been able to double Betty.
Fortunately for James here, he does have a second brainstorm in hand, so he can actually turn on the combo portion part of the Betty level 3, because you do need 2 other Bettys in play to be able to get the power and on-reverse burn.
Yeah, which is another reason why you really want to be aiming for that 6 stock double Betty finish, because you're going to have the first brainstorm down anyway.
Yep.
But you're really going to want that second Betty, otherwise, like you said, you're going to have that second Betty brainstorm down.
So here we go, James comes in with a somewhat lackluster finish, which kind of sums up the game from his side, really.
Yeah.
And as we thought, fortunately he does get the on-reverse burn here to chip away. I think, was that the last climax in the deck, or is the one?
I've just noticed that I think James is just actually like.
Well, yeah, I know what you've noticed.
What's that?
He doesn't have red.
Exactly.
Oh wow!
No one noticed.
How many people were watching that game?
You, me, Sam the judge.
Whoops.
I mean, I've had a loss that now, to be honest.
Yeah. Goodness me.
Well, okay, if we ignore the fact he doesn't have red, Gemma was incredibly compressed and also drew into the last climax of a deck, which was the Fuka climax. So,
yeah, I did ask her how many climax she had after I played Betty, and she had said she had 3 in bin. So there was no way I was dealing any damage that turn.
So at this point, it's trying to
go for the 2-turn finish.
Yeah, it's trying to chip away, isn't it? And then, because
I mean, at this point in the game, this is this is irreversible game state now.
I mean, yeah.
For James, but obviously no one actually noticed on the day. So, but I mean, thankfully James, gets wrecked anyway. So.
Thanks, Luke.
I'm actually curious as to what happened there, though. Like, how did you not have red?
He just didn't level it.
Yeah.
Well, isn't it really? I think he might have had to have leveled a level 3 Betty to get red.
He just didn't consider
it. It's been a reflex. So
yeah, I mean, usually the reflex is to level the runner.
Yeah.
That's it, really.
I mean, it's also, you've got to imagine this is top 4 on stream with an invite on the line, so the pressure is actually quite high for this game. So
there is on Judge Sam's part here, but we'll let him off as his first judging experience.
yeah, Sam's first judging experience. I'm going to bring it up with him. I'm going to scold him for this, but.
So I'd like to make an interesting point here. So Gemma's opted to go with the clock kick, and James, having used the counter last turn, she was like, okay, I can just kick this Betty to clock, no problem, plays the climax. So the level 3 Einhard only counts Kaiser Arts characters, and the 2 red characters on the field don't actually have that trait. So that Einhard is 1,000 power smaller than what I think she actually thinks it is. But James doesn't have another character in hand at this point anyway, so it's still actually bigger than the Betty. I just thought it was an interesting point I'd point out there.
Yeah.
And then James just died as here anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, please. But Yeah, I mean, when you're on stream, when it's the semi-finals and there's an invite on the line, obviously both players are going to be making rule misplays and rulings, and that are going to be.
It's a high pressure situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. But that's just the sort of thing that is going to end up happening, really. Kind of unfortunate, but it all worked out in the end because the irreversible game state resulted in a loss for James anyway.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think in the situation you're in, you definitely go for a 2-turn finish.
I think to sum up that game, it wasn't particularly high roll from either side. I think Gemma did have a better time of things. Had a good compression at the bottom of that last deck, which I think helped just push her over the finish line.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, thanks for watching this, guys. I hope you enjoyed this game with the commentary. Finals are also going to be commentated, so look forward to that. And we'll see you in the future.
Bye.
See ya.